Hello there. Good morning. I'm running a little late. I'm getting accustomed to using the live Facebook, and it's just a little different. And I'm waiting for things to be on and that sort of thing. You kind of look around while you're figuring it out. Anyhow, today is Friday, and it is around 9. Let's see, it says 9:15 or so, right? I've got the clock right behind me. And today's been a good day. Craig gets home today. He's been in Amsterdam all week working. And so that has been interesting having him not here as we figure stuff out around here. I've had some computer issues. Oh my goodness, you name it, I've had a computer issue. I was in the middle of a coaching call the other night with some other folks, and my computer totally just, everything went black. I'm like, what in the hay? What's going on? And I couldn't ask him about it, but I was able to ask him about it later on. And I needed to refigure some things here and that sort of thing. It was simpler than it felt like at the time, right? That's usually how it feels like. It's usually simpler than we think. And so I am wanting to share some things with you today about my life. And today I normally do a devotional, which I am going to start out with a devotional. However, I'm going to move into sharing about decision making and that kind of thing, and give some personal examples and some things that happened in my life that caused me to have confusion and irrationality, and how that turned for me and changed for me. However, I would not have known had I not gone on this discovery with the Lord to figure it out. Anyway, I'm going to read this short devotional before I start on emotional healing, emotional transformation regarding confusion and irrationality. But today, it's strive to trust God in more and more areas of your life. If something tends to make you anxious, more than likely, it's an opportunity for you to grow. Instead of running away from these challenges, attempt to embrace them and have an eagerness to gain all the blessings that come. Because I guarantee there are blessings that are not completely visible when you're anxious, when you have these anxiety, when you have worry. Blessings tend to be hidden because of the emotional part of what's happening with you and what's happening with me. It's hard to see outside of your emotions when your emotions are controlling you, right? Does that make sense? And so if you believe that God is on your side, you know, whether you believe or not, he still is. But sometimes it's very difficult to, quote unquote, feel like you're supported if you don't believe that person or God is in support of you. And sometimes folks are like, you know, you need to believe on yourself. You need to believe on your own, and nobody else needs to believe in you. And maybe that's true. But I believe we are called to support one another with encouragement and strength. And yay, go girl, yay, go guy. I mean, why not? Why is it that we have to be so spiritual that we can't make a simple phone call to encourage somebody or strengthen somebody? And what's interesting is some folks don't do it because they don't want those other people dependent on their encouragement and their strength for them to be encouraged or strong. And honestly, in an interesting way, for me, that is probably the most religious action that I can think of. You don't encourage somebody because you don't want them hooked on your encouragement. It just makes no sense to me whatsoever, honestly. And so, that being said, when you're not encouraged, you do need to encourage yourself. Because if you're waiting for someone to encourage you and you allow yourself to be depressed or in despair because you're not encouraged, then when you can be the greatest voice within your midst to be on your side, you should be. You should be. So let's continue. To trust God in all situations. Don't waste energy regretting the way things are or thinking about what might have been. When you waste your time in your thoughts going over and over and over and over and over something that you regret, something that you found painful, something that brought you into turmoil, then you reinforce that regret, you reinforce that pain, you reinforce that turmoil. When that is not at all what God wants for you and what God wants for me. If anything, he wants us to reinforce something that is encouraging, that is strengthening, that points us to tomorrow, that points us into life, not into death. And having horrible regrets definitely will point you to a death-filled life. And concentrating on being in pain, concentrating on being hurt will definitely pull you into a death-filled life and a death-filled future. So don't waste energy regretting. Don't do that. Don't think about what things could have been. Don't do that. And it's like, well, how do you stop doing that? Well, you stop and you recalibrate your thoughts and you make a solid decision. You know what? Things are not the way I wish they were, but I'm moving forward. I'm trusting and I'm going forward. And you start at the present moment by seriously receiving where you are today. Does that mean you have to be completely 1,000% happy with where you are today? Look, if you're in depression and despair, don't be happy with where you are today. Decide you want to move forward out of that mess. But coming to grips with you being in depression, coming into grips knowing, you know what, I'm confused about this and I'm going in 1,000 different directions. Coming to grips with that would be healthy, would be healthy for you, because then you can make a solid decision to move out of that because you've been honest with yourself where you are. Honesty is a beautiful thing to have with you. And in the midst of those circumstances, you can ask God, what is he doing in the midst of it? Because I guarantee he's not just correcting the person out there and he's not yelling at that person. He's not yelling at you. He's having a discussion with you, sharing with you how to help you turn yourself around and how to get from being a mess into becoming a masterpiece, because he already sees us as a masterpiece. He already sees us as a masterpiece. And we get to come into agreement with the inheritance of being his masterpiece. How can we not be? Made in his image. Come on. There's no other way. Made like him, there's no other option than to be a masterpiece. So, you know how the picture of Moses back in the day, you know, he had a stick, he had a staff. Just picture yourself leaning on him, but leaning into him. Picture him inside of you. And you lean into the one inside you. Not just leaning outwardly on someone, not leaning on your desk, not leaning in your chair, not leaning on a person, but on the inside. Lean in. Lean into the presence inside. Lean into truth inside. Truth about you. The truth about you is not going to be nagging, distrustful, unkind, uncompassionate, stern. It's not going to be like that. No, truth inside is, you got this. I'm with you. I love you. I'm working with you. You're not alone. You'll never be alone. I'll always be with you. That's the voice inside. That's the truth inside of you and inside of me. And it's trusting in that truth consistently. And when emotions attempt to overwhelm, coming back to the truth of the consistent voice of, I'm with you. I'm not leaving you. We're going this way. Come with me. Picking you up, picking me up, pulling us up, setting us on our feet, walking with him, because he's all about us being stable, us being decision makers, us knowing that our mind is clear, that we can make decisions, that we can think through things without analyzing them to death until we wrap ourselves up into another problem. And that leaning in, our God is a weight-bearing wall. He is a weight-bearing wall. You can't tear him down. If you do, the whole place comes out. The whole place comes down. And you can never tear down God, because he's the smartest person you know. He's the smartest person I know. He is the reason you are alive, regardless of whether you believe in a God or not. The breath that you breathe is not from some big bang. It's not from someone else. It's not from a human source. It is from the one who created you in your mother's womb. Breath was breathed in you, and you're alive with the breath of God. And that, to me, encourages me to get up and to keep moving. Because when you're breathing, you still have purpose on this planet. And honestly, you have purpose on this planet after you stop breathing, because you're still breathing in a different realm. Your spirit lives and moves and breathes and has its being in Christ Jesus, regardless whether you're here or there. And so back to my whole point. God is our weight-bearing wall. Now, that being said, I recall a time in my life when I was in great need of my dad to help me make some decisions. And he was unable to help me. He was unable to help himself. My mom had just died, and my dad was lost, completely lost, had no idea what he was doing, where he was going, and how he was going to do it. And here I was, his 19-year-old daughter, who truly had lost her rock, lost her closest friend, lost the one person who believed in her more than anyone, lost the one person she could have conversation with, lost the one person who understood her. And here I was, I hate to use the word stuck with my dad, but honestly, that is how it felt. I was pretty angry with my mom for leaving me alone with my dad. Not because he was dangerous, but because he was not relational. There was no relationship. There was nothing there between us that allowed us to have a conversation. And so here I am, a young person in need of a real conversation with my dad, who could give me direction for my life, for my lifetime, to help me understand what to do next or what not to do next, who to trust or who not to trust, where to work or where not to work, where to go to school, where not to go to school, not to go to school. Simple decisions as an adult now, although they're really not, you still have to really think through things. But when you're young and your world has been rocked and you have no idea what to do, some instruction is really, really helpful. And so I didn't have it. And what that did was cause me to be very, very confused. So this is the deal. In emotional work, you can carry the frequency of another human being. You can carry the emotion of another human being. And when I was 19, and this situation came with my dad, I literally began to carry his emotion of confusion. His confusion came on me as if it was my own. And I literally remained confused in a very specific area of life until just a few years ago. Until I was able to literally see that confusion and know that who that confusion was from. I was able to forgive him for that confusion and for his lack of direction. I was able to not only release the frequency of confusion, but release the emotion of confusion. Two different things. Not one thing, two different things. Released two different ways. And so I had forgiven a lot. I had gone through much forgiveness regarding a lot of different matters over my life as being a Christian. However, when it came to this place of confusion, it would never go away. It was like a never-ending hamster on a turn wheel, and I could never get off of this confusion thing. And when this was identified, I was able to get off, and I was able to think clearly. But let me tell you what it affected. So interesting to me when I look and see my life and see what happened and see how it happened and see the reasons for it. Because I was so hungry and so in need of some direction, because the person who directed me, the person who loved me, was my mom, and now she's gone. That confusion that he carried, because I so hungered and yearned for a relationship with him. I hungered and yearned for my own father to show me that he loved me and he wanted to be in relationship with me. That is literally not wrong. There is nothing wrong with wanting that and having that desire. But because it was coupled with the pain of my mom being gone, I literally entered into his confusion and it became mine. And so this is how it impacted me. I was unable to make simple decisions like where to eat at a restaurant, what to wear. For girls, what color lipstick to put on. It impacted big decisions, where to go to school. It impacted who to be friends with. It impacted which way do I turn? Which road do I turn on? Even though I've been on that road 1,000 times. It impacted when I got married when I was young. It impacted that. The decision making to get married even. Now listen, so this is the deal. What that did, because that confusion was on me so strongly and I had no idea it was there. What happened is over the next almost 20 years after that, I also encountered opportunity after opportunity after opportunity for me making decisions and for them to be squelched. What I discovered was I had about 20 decisions I needed to make and wanted to make that were pretty major decisions, but every time I attempted to make a decision, someone else would come and squash that decision and say, no, that's the wrong decision. No, you can't make that decision. No, you're doing it all wrong. And because of the confusion, that coupled with that, and I was just completely irrational, was unable to lead, was unable to make decisions, was unable to find my way around the 610 loop, people. This is how greatly it impacted me and how greatly it led my decision making for many, many years. There were people who I worked for that squelched the simplest and the strongest of decisions. I'm looking at my list of people. One of my first jobs, every single job, we located a situation where someone so squelched my decision making that I literally came out of all those experiences saying, I guess I just can't make decisions. I guess I can never make a decision. And how confusing that I can't make a decision. And that so impacted me, I couldn't even decide where to sit inside a restaurant. Now, people did not know this. I would go into a restaurant, I'd look around. Look, I remember one time going into a restaurant and I looked around. I went to every section of the restaurant trying to decide where I was gonna sit. And I had a meeting that day with someone that I highly respected. So I got there early so I could decide where to sit. So when that person got there, they wouldn't see my confusion. So that I could make a decision and already have it made. Look, this is real stuff. You meet people that have irrationality, you meet people who have confusion, and you think, what's wrong with them? They're stupid. Why are they so confused? There are reasons why confusion lives inside of people. It is a true frequency, and it is attached to true experiences and real decisions and real action plans and real lies. And when you can remove those things, that person has the opportunity to make a new decision in the area where they had the confusion or in the area where they had the irrationality. Removing it doesn't removing it removes the pressure and relieves the pressure from all the stress that came through the confusion and came through the irrationality. When you can remove the irrationality, when you can literally remove those frequencies, that's only the beginning. You have to know how to direct that person after that. And it's not done right that moment. It's not a meeting. It's not an event. It is a lifelong. Now, how do we walk this out? How do we learn to make decisions? What do we do next now in this area of living? Because listen, I know that when you knock out things like that that are so major and so strong and have been who you've been for your whole life and now it's gone, you falter a bit. Or you start making decisions left and right and you have no maturity in those areas because you've not used those areas and matured in those areas for those 20 something years. And so, excuse me. And so what you do is you make little decisions. You start to make little decisions. You don't go after getting relieved of all this and having all this tension removed from you and all these areas in your body opened up so you can make decisions, so you can hear clearly, so you can think clearly. You don't remove all that just to go, woo, I'm free. What do I do now? No, that's honestly, that is an unwise and foolish direction to take. No, you take one small decision at a time, one little decision at a time, and you train yourself in those areas. You train yourself to lead. You train yourself to make decisions. And for you Christians who are looking at me going, well, you know, God's the only one. I know that, people. Don't get religious on me. I'm saying that you have to hear and you have to allow yourself to be trained to make practical decisions. These are not spiritual matters normally. These are physical matters inside the physical body and inside the soul, but mostly the physical body trapped with no place to go. And you got to know how to let it out. And when you let it out, it is rock and roll time. So I just want to encourage you and strengthen you today. If you have some emotions that you know carry you away, that cause you to have unexplained things happen to you on a daily or weekly or yearly basis, if you see recurring cycles in you and they are attached to emotions, they are attached to very specific things, even down into the womb. And they aren't just one thing. It isn't just one thing. It's many things normally. And it isn't about just removing this one thing. Sometimes that does help, but it's also finding out where did you agree and what did you agree to? And why did you agree to it? And let me tell you something, that's the journey. Oh my gosh, that's the exciting part. Partnering with the one who lives inside of you to see where you have not been in agreement with him. And literally coming into agreement for what has always been yours, which is your inheritance. And your inheritance, part of your inheritance is thinking clearly. Part of your inheritance is making decisions. Part of your inheritance is knowing what to do and when to do it. That's part of inheritance, because having his mind that thinks clearly, that understands, that knows what to do, that's part of what belongs to you, and it belongs to me. I want to encourage you today. If you have emotions that seem to run you until they have ruined you, you might need to have those thoughts renovated. And there are ways to do that that are exciting and wonderful, and also quiet and intentional and personal and personable. You do not have to be alone to work out your life. There are people that can walk out life with you with compassion and understanding. It is a good thing to be alive today. It is a good thing to change the mind today. It is a good thing to hear the voice of truth today. It is a good thing to come out of agreement with action plans that have been in place that were never your true inheritance for you. So when I did have this confusion and this irrationality identified and all the agreements I'd made, and I had some forgiving to do. And it was beautiful to forgive people that had made decisions for me without allowing me to make decisions that were more controlling. Now listen, I know there is thought that we don't necessarily have to forgive people. There is that thought. But I want to tell you something I have learned about the subconscious, about the physical body, about our soul, and even about our spirit. That your physical body, it wants to release people. Sometimes in a session with someone, in a prayerful time with someone, in a time where we are looking at these kind of items, these kind of experiences, these kind of events, these kind of trauma, sometimes it literally just takes saying, my body revokes this. And it's always very specific. And sometimes there are very specific lies and vows attached to those things that need to be broken off in order for you to take on your authority in that place and govern that place and truly govern that place. Government out there starts in here. You are the CEO of YOU. And sometimes there are emotions, and sometimes there are frequencies that are inside you that you can't recognize or understand. You just know something's amiss. Or if you are on a suicide path, or you are on a hate yourself path, you can bet those frequencies do not belong to you. And learning how to love yourself as you move forward is the healthiest thing that you can do. Listen, love is from God. You can love yourself without being enamored with yourself. And you loving yourself and intentionally telling yourself that you have purpose, that you're alive on purpose. When you can intentionally, even in the opportunity I have with confusion and irrationality, when you can purposely take those areas that you were so confused in and those areas that you were so irrational in, if you can take those areas and you yourself can govern them. And what I mean by that, I mean by creatively imparting into those areas, not just the opposite, but what is truth. So instead of being irrational, I know I am able to reason. I'm able to think clearly. I'm able to make decisions. And I tell myself those things. I can think clearly. I have the mind of Christ. I do think clearly. When I feel like, oh my gosh, what do I do? Where have I been? What am I going to go? What's going to happen? What are they going to say? And that irrationality starts to swirl around me, I stop. But you know what? There was a time when I didn't stop. You know why? Because I didn't recognize it was irrationality. I thought that was just the normal processing and analyzing of information, and it wasn't. It was attached to something that was extreme that needed to be removed so that I could move forward into what was true. That area, those two areas have been renovated within me. They have been replaced, but they were removed first. They have been replaced, not just with truth, but with clarity. Not just with like myself, but with a strong compassion toward me, which for me is truth. Whatsoever things are good and pure and holy, the good rapport, those things, it's good esteem, those things, that is how we should view ourselves. And those kind of thinking, that kind of pathway inside of you can change pathways inside of you that negate your clarity and negate thinking rationally. Yeah, I think those are the only two I'm going to talk about. There were other emotions with that. When you have an incident that happens to you, a trauma, it's not like there's just two things. Normally there is a wrap up of a number of things that happen. And when you can understand it, it's just helpful. It's really helpful. And do you have to understand it? No. But that's part of the journey, getting to know you. Hey, look, get to know you. Don't just, I'm done with this and I'm rocking on. Don't do that. Get to know you. Get to like you. Get to love you. Get to know that it's okay that you think clearly and that you have rational thoughts and that it's okay because you are meant to lead. You are called to lead. No matter who you are, no matter what you're doing, you are a leader. And there are times, I know, when you don't feel like you're a leader because you have all this junk that happens, but all that junk can be handled. So listen, I want to do a little exercise with you. If you're with me and you would like to do just a little emotional exercise with me, I just want to encourage you today. If you would take just one emotion, just one, maybe take an emotion that is just bothers you greatly. Maybe you have trouble letting go of something. And it just continues and continues and continues to go over and over and over and over and over and over in your mind. I am not going to guarantee this will go away permanently because when you have the root of that, you can find out where the root took place. However, I want to encourage you to take one hand, and just put it on your stomach. And take one hand and just put it on your head, like tapping your head, loving yourself. And I want you to consider that trouble letting go. Just consider that trouble letting go. One hand on your stomach, one hand right here. Consider your trouble letting go. Think about what you're having trouble letting go. What you're having trouble letting go of. Think about it. Look at it. Find it. And then I want you to just picture it leaving you, leaving your body. You can picture it on a kite flying away. You can picture it. I know little kids, I'll get little kids and they'll give me their visual. And their visual sometimes is, oh, there's a volcano in front of me. And so they take it and they ball up that problem and they throw it in the volcano and they watch the volcano explode. Do that. Kids they know the best. They've got the best ways of getting free. And then I just want you to keep your hand there, and I just want you to consider the peace and the compassion and the love that is who you really are. And picture yourself being loved. And even say to yourself, I am loved and I am lovely. and I love myself. And do that often. Do that often. There's an area here over your lymphatics. You can do the same thing. You can just touch your heart here and calmly tell yourself that you love yourself, that you're for you, that you're not against you. It's legal to love you. It is legal to love you. Listen, I bless you today. I come on Fridays around 9 to just encourage with some devotion time, and sometimes like today with some emotional training. I want to encourage you that your future does not have to look like your past. I also want to tell you that if you have a hidden pain, if you have hidden places where no one knows that you're paralyzed and you can't think straight, or you have self-harm, or you wonder why you're alive and you don't want to be, and those kind of thoughts that are sabotaging you, sabotaging your family, sabotaging your atmosphere, sabotaging every job you could ever have, because how you think about you does come forth. If that's you, you don't have to remain like that. Those things can change about you. I know, because those things used to be me. And I know if I can change, anybody can. There'll be a link in on my post for you to get information. It's www.transformyouremations.com. And I hope to see you another time. I believe you get something free when you click on that. I believe. Honestly, I can't remember at this moment. I apologize. But just know that you're loved and you're worthy and you're valuable. So, Father, I just bless those who watch this. I release clarity into them. I release new thoughts for their future into them. I release the process of the progress. The process of the progress. There is a process of progress. I have a video on that that I did a few weeks ago that would probably strengthen you in a post I did on it. The process of the progress. God, I just release the process of the progress on those that are here, that they would know that they do not have to continue to move backwards, but they can move forward. And it's practical. It's not spiritual always. It might include spiritual, but honestly, there's so much happening inside the physical body, and there's so much happening inside the soul that you can be free. So God, I pray you bring a revelation to your people today, and they be greatly encouraged that their future really can be different from their past. I bless them in Jesus' name. Amen. I bless y'all, and I pray that you have a beautiful weekend. Until soon. Bye-bye.